Freaking ear. Cool. So, I was just going through some shaligrams and I thought I should just stream. It is, in my time, relatively early. I was thinking about going to bed a little early for me, but I started looking at shaligrams and I'm like, I should probably just stream. While I am suspended on Twitter, I just have a Twitter account that I'm really trying to just post things that I think need recorded, pretty much, need documented. So I've been posting shaligrams. I don't think I've talked about some of them, so I thought maybe we can start there. So, like, this one I found really curious because the way this is, it's kind of eroded, like it's exposed down here, it's eroded inward along just these things. That kind of is how ammonites will be. Let's see. Kind of need like the spray. These ones. Maybe. Like if this reaches out to here, and then it's like eroded inward to form this shape, it kind of seems like that might have been why. Like it's very smooth everywhere, and then right in that stretch, it's just inwardly eroded. I found that really curious. And this one, this was the only image. I think it was the only image. It might have been a video, and I took an image from the video. Somewhere I just came across. That's right, there is a video. I came across some shaligrams. Very cool. Okay. Let's move past this one though. Let's see if this one has a link or video. No video. Incredible image. Really incredible. Chambers. Chamber, chamber, chamber. Chamber, and then the chambers kind of have like chakras between them from the bottom side to the top side, and just kind of how it forms. That's like off of the back of the ammonite is like a region that like periodically protrudes energetically, that then couples to some like distal region where the resistance builds, that then has like some kind of possibly current in both directions, going like this way and then going like this way. But then shale, like it's very dark and almost like wet looking there. I don't know if that's because of stuff like on the stone, or like an oil or what, but it looks kind of localized. It's also a shale, so it gives me the impression that as an eddy is forming in the stone that is stripping the shale from the ammonite structure, it can concentrate it into the chamber itself. And maybe this is largely like how a shaligram forms, like inside a chamber like this, where there's like currents, like top bottom currents that are interacting on it that then actually shape it, that the structure is larger scale, so it's not forming so much like a cohesive ammonite. It's more so forming like the chambers that then are individually shaligrams in a larger structure that is not so clearly a larger structure at some point, although maybe there are such things. I don't know. I don't know if there's any images of like shaligrams being dug up. Like they're found in rivers, but I'm not sure they're not also found just like around the rivers in places that they could be like dug up and like exposed and then seen in more of a natural pattern that they formed in, rather than just like in a river flow where it's hard to say what circumstance that surrounded them when they formed. This one I thought was really interesting because it has this very distinct like ammonite type curve that leads into the baculite, and then there's another boundary over there, kind of like a second half, but going into the baculite structure. This one, it looks almost like the baculite is turning, like it was maybe pointed this way, and like generally rotated in the stone to be pointing this way. I don't know. My thought was like a current is flowing through here, forming like disc eddies that could theoretically take the structure and start to like fan it out into the eddy of an ammonite and turn the chambers into like domino stacked layers that then wrap around as a ammonite structure. Maybe it could happen, but in this circumstance maybe it was like too coalesced as the structure, so it just kind of rotated in the stone, creating this weird like rotational appearance, possibly accompanied by a general rotation that was ultimately like attempting energetically, like recessively, though not able to overwhelm the structure, recessively influencing it, as frequently happens in shaligrams. This one I thought was interesting. I don't really remember. I think I was just noting some kind of circular thing in like the matrix itself, like most visible here, I guess. I'm not sure if this, I think this is the top half that yeah, this was like on top of this, broke off. So interestingly, here's the ammonite, here's the negative imprint that would be on top of it. On top of the ammonite is this like mass that did not break off with the top. Instead, it stayed one with the ammonite. Like it was more one with the ammonite than it was with the top. So it didn't break off and like just have a chakra. Instead, it split the chakra, and inside the chakra, we see this round structure that's somewhat visible here. That kind of suggests like a current flow going down through the chakra through like a drain that sort of like a baculite type thing like this, that like possibly eddies like a corkscrew shape, but maybe focused just towards like the center of the ammonite, where then it like spreads out within the ammonite energetically from the chakra, or goes through the ammonite entirely through the other chakra, but leaving this structure that's just like where the rock splits now visible. So that's for that one. And then this one, let's see, what do we got? Astounding Shaligram. I might have talked about this one before, but I think I noticed some more details. So I was looking over here, and I noticed like a general trend going across this way. Like right here, across that way, and generally like here, maybe. And across as like a width of a current that my thought was like eddying inside of the Shaligram as the eddy of the ammonite that was forming the ammonite in its eddy of the water current that's doing this. And some of the current went over top this way, or possibly like flowed in that way, but I think eddying like around this way, possibly with an outer current the other way, or I haven't really thought about it. I think I drew arrows going this way. Yeah, that's right. Here like this. So like one current going this way, and interestingly, here is this other structure that I haven't really mentioned that is there. So just kind of, we can see it in the way this is around, and then just around. So kind of like that drain down through the chakra, but more just like a bulb or bulge. I don't know. Some mound. That through the mound current flows down through the chakras. And then over here, though, it's like this. It's not just stationary. There's an actual eddy atop the mound. That is why these lines are there, these striations. The nuances that there is a mound is like the eddy is rounded like the eye of the storm kind of thing. But that eddy only expands so far, and then beyond this point right across here, any portion of that current just like propagates more so over this way, where it seems to go instead around another mound forming over here, related to the other, like there's the ammonite, and here's a lobe kind of like this. Out this way though, it's forming a boundary here, like a chakra between, that we talked about before for sure, but I just didn't notice these features like this, where it's really clear here, the boundary. So there's basically current flowing this way and along this boundary that's running into resistance this way and just being forced this way at a boundary of here generally, at a width that's going this way, that then some of it goes like along these striation paths to go across this way, and it flows in the eddy here atop this central region of the stone here, the top. So there's two eddies, one going around this way, possibly like physically all the way around it, like treating the whole thing like a chakra, and going around it and back this way, like across here, and like some of it going across and in there, but some of it going back this way, and just being like a system of currents that are flowing in different ways, but also with a outflow this way between them, that then I draw kind of here, like a generally between them a flow going that way. And then the chakra going down through the chakras, where this eddy generally propagates energy down through the chakras. Really cool over here. And then, on the other side of the stone, here's the other side. So that, notice this blue line here goes basically across this way. So like generally around here. So my thought is it's like holding a boundary. No, I was checking out this Yankee pitcher. Checking, did they win? I don't know. I was kind of paying attention to the playoffs in baseball. Baseball's awesome. It's just a good game. But my thought is a current going this way that maybe has a width generally, that then holds this boundary so that this structure struggles to form further because this current is like maybe even fanning out beyond the point, like past this circle, like it's maybe even fanning out more like this to like go that way and this way after it passes the other current pressures, and just essentially holds a boundary over here, as I was thinking. But when it goes to the other side over here, so it comes through generally after here around this area, so we can see it coming through here, so it doesn't just like go off the stone. It's not like when it goes this way, it's actually going like this way. It actually goes down and around the back of the stone, and possibly down and around the back, and down and around the back as well. I don't know. And sometimes it goes off and like re-emerges, like flows off, like ramps off, like let's say off here, where it goes around that some other current, and then it up pressure, like other pressures just push it back down, and then it goes in and will cut the stone. Sometimes there's evidence of that kind of thing going on, but it's probably just going around the stone here. So just to do that here, around the stone this way, and possibly like generally that way and that way, but maybe let's take this one a little further, like this boundary here. There's a boundary here that kind of goes like this, continues like this, a little further outside of what I'm drawing. So kind of like beyond that boundary though, goes there. But then like the stone has all these striations in it, so we can kind of follow them. Striation, 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 striation. But then over here, I think they start going like this. we see here, we also see going this way, probably around this. So essentially suggestive, the current goes through here and then kind of just eddies here. But also goes around off of this eddy and goes around this way. And essentially forms an eddy here, possibly in the opposite direction, an eddy here. Like maybe it goes this way. Maybe I didn't draw this right. Like it goes actually this way and wraps around and like goes up there, but some of it goes back this way. So it really leads to an eddy counterclockwise. That maybe some of it goes up this way, like across, feeds across, and then goes counterclockwise within here, because that can happen. I'm not saying that I see it necessarily, but that could be what actually, some like nuance of it that was happening. But so this is how I drew it before, like, so generally the same. Also, one thing I noticed that I didn't notice here enough is to like point it out is this boundary. So like maybe here, around here, there's like a structural boundary of like this wheel section here. Goes around, and then bends in right here to go against it. It's like the horn or something. And then that is abutting this other eddy region. Probably with much more crossover than I drew it in that first one, because it probably is going more so to the left here and wrapping around counterclockwise, and off of this nook, like forming a nook going into it. It could have gone counterclockwise, but that doesn't seem to match the rest of the stone, so it seems that it probably went counterclockwise. Could have gone clockwise. I don't know what I said. Could have gone clockwise, but it went counterclockwise, it seems. Okay, so there's that one. Very cool. This one we're gonna talk about again, and then I started looking at some geology papers. So that's what this was. Clockwise rotation of the Northern Australian block. Speaking of rotation, clockwise rotation of the Northern Australian block. Although I believe I interpreted this as counterclockwise flows, like flowing in here and going counterclockwise. Although they're specifically talking about here and over here, some basin. Whatever this basin is, Canning Basin. So it could be that it's kind of like we were just looking at, where there's multiple eddies that could be going different directions. Like this could be feeding in across and going clockwise and not counterclockwise, and this is going counterclockwise kind of thing, where the like end of the ammonite had a different direction than the rest, where it went like counterclockwise and then clockwise. Feasible. There's something of that nature to at play to the ammonite of Australia. Okay. But I didn't really even intend to talk about those. This one's incredible. I've definitely like talked about it early on, but I don't know if I appreciated this detail. I certainly did not. So it's worth bringing up this Shaligram here that has that I talked about before, but it has the ammonite down here that's visible here, but then off of the top where it's forming, like I previously said, I'll start here, like where it can form another, like it can form like a structure like this to the ammonite, but it can also do it like at a higher energy, like instead of this boundary, doing it off of this boundary and go this way. So it seems like it was potentially doing it up there at a higher boundary, but at that higher boundary is another ammonite. And I've been thinking about this a lot. So there's an eddy inside of here. Basically an eddy A. That's going at a first energy level. That's like a certain amount of the ammonite. And then it is like expanding into like reaching over, kind of like the one we just looked at, that was reaching over into this region of the ammonite specifically. Actually very similar, this, where it's actually reaching into this area with the energy flows of this ammonite. It's reaching in. Now imagine it's, instead of forming a lobe over here, it's making a bigger ammonite structure that extends upward. But instead of that, it's actually forming an eddy here that goes the other direction. And instead of going all the way up and around the lobe, it just forms an eddy atop the ammonite. So that seems to be what's happening here. Where then atop the ammonite, a counterflow eddy that basically was flowing out of this eddy and going like across that way, and would have gone down and into the stone and back underneath atop this ammonite as part of its structure, like etching its structure. Instead though, it really like stayed atop the ammonite and eddied here, it seems, to a point where it actually created like an eddy center and started to form an ammonite lobe out this way that then did the same thing above it, where like this side had that additional lobe like off of here. So it did this lobe here, but it does it again over here off of this ammonite though, doing some weird thing that's kind of suggestive of like a chakra there, and like a lobe, and maybe just like another ammonite essentially forming in a tiered nature, maybe like around that boundary, like some aspect of it happening, but just like very recessively. It wasn't like dominantly being etched into the stone. And then even where this base eddy reaches up through this way and like hugs it all, to kind of like be part of it all. Like it's all one flow that's very interconnected and interacting, but it's just not coalescing into like a unit, a single unit. Instead, it's like breaking down into layers of different units that then stack one atop another, going like sideways outward. Where this one even is kind of looking like an eddy, like on the stone itself, like right here, like an eddy into the stone in that region, maybe that was happening. Making that formation there. So that is very much like what comes to mind when I saw this was kind of the inverse though. Like here's this Ammonite. Ammonite A has boundaries here. And like a chakra in this area that would have been around there. And then Ammonite B like generally we see it there. Chakra down here as well. And then might as well just kind of point this out, like this general area here, surrounded by this general thing. Like seems like sort of like an Ammonite segment, but then like over here as well, where it was like two competing structures, making more of a chakra here rather than a chakra here, that then even seems to have some aspect of like chambers forming around it. And here's a chamber, then maybe here's a chamber, and then maybe like this is more of a suture pattern region of the larger ammonite that would form. I don't know. Just a thought, and then interestingly, some like general relationship back across this way. So there's all that going on, but what, like, let's see if I can find a good one for how they layer. I can think of one. This is probably like they'll basically, an eddy will carve out the central chakra region, and then it will branch out by cutting channels like so off of the eddy centers region. Off of here it cuts further, cuts over this way. In this stone's case, it tried to cut that way, it seems. Interestingly, almost making like a this way. Like holy shit. I don't want to get rid of that, but do you guys see the chakra right here? Across this way, and then up over here, and across and down. That's like very much in line with this boundary going across this way. Even though the ammonite is here, but like this here and this really point to like this structure. So maybe it was initially forming this chakra, and then it started cutting in here more to the point where it shifted the eddy into more of like across the equatorial balanced region of the stone, which then it became stable in its positioning and more so eroded this final product, but not without like impacting the stone down here to make it start to have a chakra erosion happening that didn't get like eroded over top afterwards, so it's still visible. But the point is, it can come out the bottom at certain points and out the top. That's not the best example. I guess I frequently reference this one. Out the top, out the bottom, out the side, where then out the bottom leads to like expanding to a larger thing, having a like one of these like we saw before, we're talking about. Out the top sideways here, top side. So the point is it can expand the lobe structure various ways. Like here it's like trying to go out the side, but then it just goes out the side and doesn't really continue to form the structure. The flow is then goes along that path. Possibly there was like a flow that got trapped in here, but then once it like this eddy formed and started to form this lobe, it just expanded out far enough that the current could just flow through, but like did so with a lot of erosion, but like no longer forming the eddy structure larger because it didn't need to. It got through the resistance, like maybe. But then here we have, interestingly, like if we look here, there's kind of like a path in here that it goes across there, like some kind of sign of some flow possibly in the region. I don't know. My thought was essentially like it was trying to carve down into the stone. In this instance, this eddy that was here around this chakra was trying to like cut down into the stone along a general region where it just got through enough that it actually went through into here. Which is like why this boundary is more like it is, rather than being more like this. This side is kind of has a hard boundary from this eddy, basically propagating an extensional like boundary of itself outward, with the like intent to like wrap around this portion, say. Maybe something like that, and like maybe even across like the chakra, something more in that nature, to form like a lobe. But instead it got in to a region that it was more like easily ejected from the stone, the pressures, the local pressures of these eddies, by cutting another eddy into the stone here and not going up this way. Which is, interestingly, this position here looks very much like an appropriate position for like if this eddy were to, if this structure were to go like that. Interesting. But so going across this way, and possibly actually in and not out. I'm not sure. Not sure which way. Possibly running into this current and being pushed back. This eddy kind of having like outward boundaries so that the flow couldn't go that way, and maybe was like forced too quickly back to, so I couldn't just like make it up here, carve a boundary around there, and literally not etch this. Like the stone could have had this shale or this material just extending over here, filling all of this space, looking a lot like this, except for where this region has more definition of an ammonite, because instead it actually managed to make the pathway through, but it didn't, so it made an ammonite. Incredible. It's incredible, dudes. Looks like there's one down here too before we go, like right here. Dupe, and then dupe. Like generally maybe some boundaries. It's beautiful. Oh, I still see it. Oh, it's too beautiful. Okay. Without the lines, it's whatever. Oh, look at that. The strip. Wow. It's so clean. It's basically perfectly straight. Work of art? Okay, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my, check this out. Speaking of phantom Shaligram features, right here, and then going across this way, and then across, like the rock actually cuts across. And maybe I'm like bounded here. Just kind of makes me think of a lobe, like out this way, that was kind of happening in a way that related to the boundary being there like that. Now when I draw it, I can't even see it as well. Also possibly a relationship like to this point, between this and like over here. Like if there's some kind of flow going across that then goes down and across. I don't know, just a thought. I didn't really finish the thought. Some interesting stuff down here. Down, down, down. So many details. And then another side of the stone. I didn't really think about this side. Lots of cool stuff. Hard to say. Like, this looks related. Like, this is just going right through the stone and actually eddying at resistance over here. Potentially. I don't know if there's chakras. Looks like there's a chakra. But the other side towards us, we can't see it. This looks kind of similar to this. Can't really tell what's happening though. Okay, let's go. This is another one that I thought was really doing several of these types of things like this one. So we've got the obvious ammonite here. And in this case, it's doing that like branching off thing this way. I'm trying to think what all I saw in this Shaligram. I can think of one thing that's definitely also this, like it's going more so this way and more so up to like that boundary. I'm just trying to think what else before I go to what I'm thinking. Okay, let's just do it. Maybe the other things will come to mind. So let's just look at a similar Shaligram that I believe is there. It is, boom. So there is no question the chakras are here, like somewhere in there. It's hard to say what's going on, but like the chakras are between these things. In this one, the chakras are obviously where we drew them, but there's this thing back here that's got like a boundary across this way, and it kind of goes up, and then this one across, and then down and over, and down, and kind of down there too, looking a lot like a chakra, like that kind of thing going on at least. And if we look around the stone a little more, we see like right here, possibly related to there. But then over here, and then here, like below the chakra, above the chakra. Like it's trying to maybe form even like a much larger lobe type system over there. Kind of looks like one back there even, the way that is. I think there was something else but I cannot remember, so that's so be it. Whew, what a Shaligram. Cray. Scheiße, wow. I didn't realize I had so many pictures. 7. Oh. Okay, apparently I kept this one open. Why did I keep this one open? I think it was just because the details were anomalous. Like, we can see a boundary over here doing the same thing subtly. Like, subtly shaping the rock. Even the chakra looks kind of interesting, like a unit. But then the boundary of the ammonite makes no sense. It's got like abrupt continued shale across it. It's broken. And then it goes back up. Goes over, back up. It's got an extra line above it there, something going on. Some details to the stone and just like... You guys are telling me these are fossils, but I don't think you saw why they're not. So you can appreciate how ridiculous that is. So, here's another one with recent videos we've come across with this like patch. Not only recent videos, but in recent videos we've talked about where there's these striations, where maybe I can find a better image of one that is like that. Here's some on a surface, but sometimes they'll actually have an ammonite in them. I don't think that these images, like this one, it went down and wrapped in and formed the ammonite here instead of forming it inside of this current flow path that was then just etching linear lines while flowing like this though. But along one surface like that, creating lines. That then could get in. The current can like cut into the stone, go underneath, cut underneath it, and then basically eddy into the stone and create an ammonite inside of one of these like gouges from these currents that we probably saw very recently. Not that one, although that might have some aspects to it. I don't know if it's a saved one. That was recent. I've also been looking at Shaligrams a lot. I don't know. Here it's kind of doing it within the eddy. Inside of the eddy. Kind of cutting out of the stone. So just, and then going through the stone here. Maybe like this one, but I don't see quite the structures I thought was on there. These stones. Okay, you get the point. But it flowing this way that I'm terribly drawing. Or the other way, I don't actually know the direction. At this stage, at least. But then we see an interestingly... I didn't notice this before. I don't know where this will take us. This in here, like a boundary. A second boundary, basically, around where the overall boundary is more around here. So there's a secondary region in the red area. Where that even looks like it's slightly different angles, so maybe I should draw it red. It's actually slightly different angles in this area. But so generally a current going across that's then carving like a divot as it goes through. And creates the striations along the surface. And then gets into the in and eddies around the chakra that's crossed like this. Okay. But like there's some oddities where typically when this happens, the ammonite is like a function of the current. So it's not like this. The angle of the ammonite opening is not really in line. I think it's off. It's kind of like this angle, maybe. Off of the path. That's weird. But then that's not the only thing that's weird, so... myself excluded. I mean, we all know he's insane. Then there's this boundary over here that's very much in line with this boundary. So this ammonite here that continues over this way is at this boundary. And if we follow this boundary, what do we know? Bada bang. I might have forced it there. I don't know. But like, so basically a current flow that another current is interacting with to create this eddy. Probably actually related to this current, I don't know. But going this way, at a boundary though, so that it basically forces this eddy boundary here to arc down and then to get past the pressure and then go back up this way and kind of fade out that way. Instead of following more along the green path, it gets bent by this pressure over here that's pushing into this region. And then another eddy was happening here. And then that expands downward and like in this like stepped kind of thing. Like a chakra itself, maybe. Where then down here is another ammonite. kind of like this one, this one, this one. Maybe, I don't know where the chakra is over here, but maybe it's more over there. It could be. Let's see if we can see other. It looks like it might be there. It's probably more like in this line, like right from that point down, basically. Probably more so there, or at least related, maybe like a boundary of the chakra, not exactly the center of the chakra. Some weird squiggles over here. Also looks like right here is maybe a chakra. Maybe even going like across from up there, where it's like eroding. To erode in to create a chakra like that. It's very similar in appearance too. But then it's creating like another ammonite over here that's really just like eroding. Like over here it could erode. And then once it gets in, like it's so much a part of this structure, it's not going to create an ammonite. It's just going to erode in. But it's the same general thing happening, where it starts to cut into this segment more than elsewhere. But it's cutting into like a region of the stone that this eddy is able to reach to and influence, so that anything going on here that maybe eddies inside of there is just not doing anything except for like carving material out enough for this one to begin to really etch the structure to its details. So it's really just part of this eddy, but this is like still the same general thing happening. Just okay. Some other details on this one, but that was mostly what I was curious about. This one's incredible. I just thought I can't fathom how cool this would be under a microscope. It's probably years since this sold. Several years probably this has been up. And then this one. So then we got like a chakra somewhere around here. Like in this general area. An ammonite that then is around it. That's forming in curious ways, but then over here, like a chakra does, having like a boundary here, like this, and going around that way, but then having this, like a literally like a chakra having, like it could have another one like here, another one like blah, just creating like actual chakra structures that we see going up through here, but going around and pretty distinctly making what I would say is like the lobe of an ammonite, like a chunk. Like if we were to be looking at like this, just way less formed. Not yet eroded in here, just like beginning to do the thing. It's maybe not the best example because it's a little too far along, so it doesn't really compare that well. I mean, maybe like that. Like just forming a lobe where it's very much the same in appearance as the rest of the stone. It's just eroded around it. But in this case, it's more so has a chakra that formed, whereas on this one, the chakra is just less coalesced. Notice there's a bunch of other stuff going on, small stuff, but the scale, or the stone, is predominantly overwhelmed by whatever's going on here. Like is typical of ammonites, of shaligrams, where they'll have like a ammonite. In this case, it's like two ammonites that are kind of like, which one are we? We don't know. So where there's like a chakra, like a, here, chakra, and then another chakra, like down here, chakra, and then a lobe, but then a lobe that's not really behaving like a lobe, it's behaving like a second ammonite, but it like could be a lobe, it could like beep, 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 beep. And like etch out further and create a lobe structure. Notice also like the top is very much across from the top of this one. Bottom very much, so they're like very much the same height, equal heights, and then across here almost like parallel right there to the boundaries angle. It's like it was really forming an ammonite by having current go into the stone, like generally at the chakra, like running into the stone. And going in, like around it one way and the other way to basically like create a chakra region over time. Like it would lead to a chakra that was generally based on a current running into the stone and dividing and going like where basically some of it goes inward, some of it goes outward around that. I don't know if I did that very well, but so it was going like both directions, splitting, where part of it was forming the lobe. Like actually going around, forming that lobe out this way. Over here. Like this is the surface we're looking at here. And then the chakra that we are looking at, that's kind of here, but like energetically probably goes into the stone a bit. But then where over here it just formed an eddy and didn't actually like couple. It seems maybe they coupled, but it didn't. It just didn't do the necessary things. I'm trying to think why it would do this in a more systematic way. Also, interestingly, around the boundary here, maybe there, maybe there. This one looks more like, I don't know, I'm thinking of something like that. Like a larger lobe structure that was kind of just eroding little patches. I'm not even sure where the chakra is. It kind of looks like a chakra here in a weird way. The rock dividing in half energetically along this line, it looks just like enough. Just enough to have like a greater influence than elsewhere. A little bit there, but this one looks more pronounced. These are all different angles than this too, interestingly. Like the general trends in the stone look not quite the same angle. Like, or maybe like there's multiple angles. I kind of feel like I can see like a circle there. I might be making that up. Okay. Okay. I just did a Shaligram search on Etsy and then on eBay. This one's pretty cool. Okay, dudes, I think I'm gonna stop. These are cool, but this one is pretty interesting. The way it just, half of it is sutured. That's pretty much like divides the ammonite. To over here, like from here across that way. And then the sutures stop. This is what I mean though with that one, whereas that this one. In this area where it had like the chambers over here around the chakra here, and then like the suture region that's kind of like specifically a segment of it. It's kind of what I was thinking. Something like this at play that just was way earlier in the process. Some other ones, okay. Alright guys, was awesome. Thanks for hanging out. Till next time. Peace, love, and understanding.